Hello, my name is Martha Smith, and I'm a horticulture educator with the University of Illinois Extension. And today we're going to be in part 3 of our seed starting series, and we're going to be talking about seedling growth. You've already been introduced to the process of seed starting. You have started your seeds, you've had germination. Now we have to talk about seedling growth and what you need to do to ensure that you have healthy seedlings. So what conditions for successful seedling growth do we need to provide? Well, we have to talk about all of these things. We have to talk about light. Now, when you were germinating the seed, for some seeds, you didn't have to worry about light. But now with seedling growth, we have to talk about it. We have to talk about temperatures. We have to talk about water, fertilizer, and then we're going to talk about some potential problems you might face with seedling growth. So if you have a greenhouse which supplies adequate natural light, why don't you just take a snooze while the rest of us learn a little bit more about the artificial light that we have to deal with. Seedlings have to have bright light after germination, and without adequate light, they can end up wimpy, leggy, pale, weak, and they're trying to grow, but they just can't produce the food that they need. So seedlings need bright light, okay? And if it's not supplied naturally, you have to provide artificial light. And what you need to understand is that different parts of the light spectrum influence different stages of growth. So I've got a little light spectrum bar there, and we know the blue end of the spectrum is going to promote the early stages of vegetative growth, the leafy growth. Then, if we're trying to bring these into bloom, which would give us flowers and pollination and fruiting, then we need to have the red-orange end of the light spectrum. Now, there's different types of light bulbs that are out there. We have fluorescent. They're readily available, and they produce very good results. And a lot of our grow lights that we can buy are our type of fluorescent light. We have high-intensity discharge, which is the HID. They mimic natural light the best. They also are more expensive and are not as efficient as some of your other choices. The latest available is the LED lights. And the LED lights, we'll talk about those, but I think you can see in the picture, are pushing the two ends of the light spectrum that we need, the red and the blue. Don't use incandescents. Provides red light and very little blue light for the vegetation, and they also give off a lot of heat. And don't use sun lamps. They have too many of the ultraviolet rays, which will kill your plants. So let's talk about each of these different types of lights. First, we have fluorescent, very common. And many of our grow lights are actually fluorescent. And what makes a grow light different is how the inside of that tube is coated. And with grow lights, they're coated so that they give off the blue end and the red end of the light spectrum. That's what a grow light is. Now, you can buy a grow light, and I have pictures here showing you the tube. I'm also showing you a compact fluorescent light. But you don't have to buy specific grow lights. You can do a combination of cool white fluorescents and warm white fluorescents. And if you're not familiar, I put that little diagram on the bottom. On the right is the cool white, which if you're sitting in a room under cool white, it's more of a brighter, harsher light because it's giving off more of the blue end of the spectrum. Versus warm white, which you see on the left, where those lights are coated to give off more of a warm, cozy glow, and that's giving you more of the red end of the spectrum. So what I have in my basement, I grow only under artificial lights, is I have a 4-foot ballast that holds 4 fluorescent tubes, and I have 2 cool white and 2 warm white, which basically gives me the same thing of 4 grow lights. So fluorescents are very good. I also will date my fluorescent bulbs because they start to lose efficiency. If you have ever seen a fluorescent tube that's starting to darken at both ends, they're starting to lose their efficiency. And when you use fluorescent tubes, you have to have the plants immediately below them, and if you're losing light on the edges, you're losing efficiency, and you're not using your grow space to the best that you can. Now, the bulbs are still good. You see there I dated it January 2017. I would use those bulbs for 2 grow cycles. Then they're still good. I put them up into my ceiling light fixtures, and they're fine. It's just when growing, I want to make sure that I'm using the most efficient. So here on the left, I'm showing you some different types of light fixtures. Notice I have circled the bottom left, showing you a timer because I set all of my lights on timers, so I don't have to worry about running downstairs and turning them on and coming back later on and turning them off. There's also compact fluorescents. I personally have never used them, but from what I understand, they're going to be basically the same. You get the fluorescent tube, you get the hood. Now with fluorescents, your compact fluorescents, they have what they called a daylight bulb and a warm bulb. So you would start your plants under the daylight bulb, which probably is more the blue end of the spectrum, and finish them under the warm, which will give you the red end of the spectrum. Now with fluorescent lights, you've got to keep them close to the plants. This is a common mistake people make, and they keep the bulbs, a foot away, and they start to get stretchy, spindly, weak growth. You want to keep your fluorescent lights 1 to 2 inches away. So if you're growing a wide variety of things, this can start to be a challenge because some things are going to grow faster than others. You would also need to do this with your compact fluorescent also. So in order to keep everybody happy, you've got to start to be a little imaginative. Now here, the picture that I'm showing you, my germinating mat is turned off, but I'm still using my grow light. And I obviously have shorter seedlings on the left and taller at the right. So I start tilting my light. I might put things on bricks to get them closer. It really does take a little bit of imagination to get it all figured out. On the left is a system that you can buy, which has chains where you can adjust for your various plant heights. You can have one end higher, the other end lower. Now, if you remember when I first talked with you about just seed starting introduction, we talked about cost savings, and here's where you can start to get into some more costs. You can have a simple grow light that you tilt, or you can buy one of these more elaborate systems, which runs about $250. With my system that I have, I already said I have a 4-foot ballast that holds 4 fluorescent tubes. Now, with that, I'm going to have to be able to adjust the height of that. You can buy a pulley system, which I'm showing you here, or I just use some simple chains and some S-hooks, and I manually adjust my light so that I'm keeping those plants only about 1 to 2 inches away from that light bulb. Now, There's systems that you can buy. These are pretty slick. You can adjust the grow lights. They also come with a bottom watering tray, which you can use to water your plants. But they're going to cost you some money, anywhere from $170 up to $600–700. This was another system that I saw. Again, you can adjust the lights. You can switch out your bulbs light bulbs if you want, and you also have a tray for bottom watering. Now the HID, the high intensity discharge. What you're going to get is you're going to get the light fixture, you're going to get the reflector. The ballast is actually separate, and it'll come with a power cord. Now these do mimic natural sunlight the best, and really it depends on the system that you purchase, the wattage, but that will determine how far away you can keep them from the plants. The picture I'm showing you on the right is my grow room, and I have an HID light, and I think you can tell by the light quality I'm using the red end of the spectrum to finish off those bulbs or those plants. With my system, it's a 400-watt system, and the instructions said I can keep that light 30 to 36 inches above the top of the plants, which now gives me a larger grow space. With those fluorescent fixtures, you have to have them immediately over those plants. So that's why when they start to darken at the end, you can start to lose efficiency. With the high intensity discharge, the higher the wattage, the further away you can have it. So here there's a 600-watt system, and you'll notice there's a single light in there. Well, with HID systems, they have two different types of lights. One is a metal halide, which is going to give you the blue end of the spectrum, and the other is a high pressure sodium, which is going to give you the red end. In the picture of my grow room, I have the high pressure sodium, which is giving off the red end of the spectrum. Depending on the wattage, anywhere from $300 on up. And these are the bulbs. As I said, high pressure sodium, sometimes called HPS, is going to be your red. Metal halide is the blue. They don't use the mercury vapor anymore. You might, unless you have a very, very old light. The ones that I've seen recently use the high pressure sodium or the metal halide. So with the system I have, I physically have to swap them out. So I start off with the blue end till I get some good growth, and then when I want to start to switch them over into a flowering state, I'll manually switch out and put the high pressure sodium. Depending on your wattage, bulbs can run anywhere from $34 up to $100. They also have longer lasting, will last usually about 20,000 hours, 830 days for a metal halide, high pressure sodium, 40,000 hours, or about 1,600 days. So yes, they're more expensive, they mimic light the best, and you should not be replacing them as often as your fluorescents. The latest are the LEDs, and this is what I have. It's an LED glow panel 45. With this, reading the instructions it came with, it said I could hang it 10 to 24 inches above the plants. So I went right in the middle and I hung it at about 17 inches. This gave me approximately 5 square feet of grow space. So again, I'm getting more grow space. You are not to exceed 18 hours a day, and that's where the timers come in. Even with your fluorescents and your high intensity discharge, you want to set your timers according to the instructions. With fluorescent tubes, I usually, if they're old, I will set them at a higher length, maybe 16 hours. If they're brand new, I'll set them for about 14 hours a day. LED panels do use 80% less power than your HID lights, so they are more efficient. And what are they pushing? They're pushing the blue and the red end of the spectrum. Now you can use these as a standalone, or you can use them with other grow lights. According to this manufacturer, I have a 50,000 hour lifespan, and it's 45 watts. Now with LEDs, because they're pushing the blue and red, I find it difficult to accurately gauge my plant's health because of this color rendering. So you can actually get glasses which are designed to give you more balanced color when you're viewing your plants growing under an LED light. And this is something I'm going to try this coming year, because it is. When I want to really see my plants growing under the LED light, I have to physically turn that off and then notice if there's any yellowing or how they're doing, and really to get a better gauge with plant health. So we've talked about light. Let's get back to our seedlings. You're going to place them under light once germination is over. Remember the type of light that you have. Fluorescents you have to keep close. HID, it's going to depend on your wattage. The one that I have says 30 to 36 inches. And LED, again, it depends on the size. And as I said, mine said 10 to 24 inches, so I put it at about 17 inches. Set your timers. Like I said, if they're relatively new lights, I'll set them at about 14 hours a day. If they're starting to lose efficiency, I might bump that up a little longer to 16 hours of light a day. Don't give them 24-hour continuous light. They need a dark period. Also, in my grow space, in my basement, I want to keep the air circulating. I don't want things to get too wet because I'm trying to prevent diseases from taking over. So I have a fan, and I set it under the table just so it's circulating air in the room. I'm not placing that fan so it's blowing directly on my seedlings, but it's in the room so it's circulating and it's keeping things drier. So you do that, and you're going to adjust your lights as your plants grow. So for seedling growth, there's some other things that we have to consider. We have to think about our air temperatures. It's best to keep our grow room air temperatures under 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and this is for disease prevention, because some of our water molds really will proliferate when your air temperatures get above 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Moisture. You want to keep them moist but not wet. And I like to bottom water, where you would take your seedling container, it should have drainage holes on the bottom, and I'm placing it in a little bit larger container with maybe a couple inches of water, setting it in there, and I'm allowing it to wick up into the media. Then I let that drain. I set it off to the side for maybe 5 minutes and then put it back under my light. I like this because it's keeping my foliage drier. Now with fertilizer, with germinating, we didn't have to consider fertilizer because the seed leaves, the cotyledons, had everything that that seed needed for germination. But now that the plant is growing on, it's growing through photosynthesis, you have to start to think about fertilizing. I always start out with a half-strength concentrate, and I will do it maybe every second or third watering. It really depends on what you're growing and your growing conditions. A half-strength concentrate is nothing more than I call them blue water fertilizers. The Miracle Grows, the Hyponex, the Schultz, the Peters. If it says 1 tablespoon per gallon, I put half a tablespoon per gallon. And I will put the fertilizer concentrate in that bottom water tray and let it wick up. drain and then put it under my lights. But I'm not doing this for every single watering. As I said, you're going to have to do a little trial and error and see what's going to work with your growing situation. So what problems might you encounter with growing seedlings? Well, we have damping off. We have a few pests, sureflies and fungus gnats. You can have tall, spindly plants. You can have slow growth, or you can start to see some yellowing of the foliage. So let's talk about each of these. Damping out is a fungus, and there's fungi, there's water molds. They cause disease and they kill your young seedlings. More than likely, if you've grown them seedlings too warm, they're looking all healthy one day, and then you come the next day and they're all falling over, bare spots, they're rotting away. You've been hit by one of the fungus or the water molds. How can you stop this? Well, we talked about it in the first session. Sanitation. Keep everything clean. Because a lot of times these diseases can be carried over in dirty soil, dirty containers. Good airflow. I already said I like to keep a fan in the room just to circulate air to keep things drier. Avoid overwatering. And this is, again, you're going to have to play around with it and find out with your media what it needs and how much. And then also keep your grow room temperatures below 68 if possible, because anything above that is where these things just love to take hold and kill your seedlings. There are some pests. The two primary pests for us to consider are sureflies and fungus gnats. Sureflies are just little black bumbling flies. They're really more of a nuisance. They breed in overwatered conditions with algae. So again, keep your place clean. Don't overwater. They do, if you look really, really close, they might leave some little black fecal spots on the foliage, but that's really it. They're really more of a nuisance than anything else. Fungus gnats look like black mosquitoes, okay? And the adult flying around isn't too much of a concern, but they lay their eggs in the soil, and then the larvae hatch, and the larvae will eat your roots. And they also feed on algae. So this can cause the roots mass to lessen, so you don't have that good balance of root to top shoot. And you can also introduce other pathogens through the fungus gnats feeding. So what can we do? Well, we can avoid overwatering. We can have good airflow. The yellow sticky traps you can set out, and this will catch the adult fungus gnat, and they won't be able to lay eggs. There's also a BT product, Bacillus thuringiensis, which you can treat the soil. You can water that in to control the larvae. Now, where do these guys come from? Well, a lot of times what we do is we have these grow lights and we want to grow seedlings, but then we also have a few of our favorite garden plants that we want to overwinter. And where else should we put them but under the grow light? So they're sharing space with your seedlings. And many times you can be bringing them in on plants that you had outdoors. So I always recommend, if you're going to overwinter plants under a grow light, have a separate grow light. Don't put them near your seedlings. And the other thing with fungus gnats, unfortunately, the eggs can come in on your soil media. So, there's two ways that they can be introduced. Or, you could be bringing some in if you're getting plants starts from another friend. Your plants are stretching. They're tall and spindly. Well, maybe you have them too far away from your light source, or maybe your light bulbs are starting to lose efficiency. So if that's what you're seeing, consider one of those options. They're just not growing, slow growth. Well, you could be keeping your grow area too cool, especially if you're trying to grow something that prefers warmer temperature, like a green pepper or a tomato. So maybe you need to raise up your temp a little bit, or bump up your fertilizer. Give them another shot, give them another good boost. Now, foliage is turning yellow, and this could be several things. Overwatering can cause yellowing foliage. Underwatering can cause yellow foliage. Maybe it's a nutrient issue. There's something that the plants just aren't getting. The bulbs are getting old. They're just not able to supply the plants what they need. Or you might need to bump up your fertilizer. And this is where, when I'm growing under those LED lights, this is where I really think those glasses would be a benefit, because sometimes I can't tell until I physically turn that light off and then realize, oh, I wish I had noticed this last week. Other pests you might encounter, well, we already talked in the seed starting introduction, seed predators, and we have mice, and if you're storing seeds, you want to put them in a critter-proof container. Outdoors, when we're planting, sometimes rodents and birds want to dig up our seedlings and seeds. There's various, mechanisms out there. If you're having trouble with your outdoor furry or winged pests, I recommend that you visit Living with Wildlife in Illinois. This is a University of Illinois Extension website that can give you some ideas and tips when you're having to deal with these other pests. So, back to our seedlings. What are we doing? We're going to keep monitoring our grow room temperatures. We're going to watch the moisture. We're not going to overwater. We're thinking about the correct distance from the lights, any pests, and you're going to follow this until you're ready to transplant, either up to a larger container, such as if you're starting in a seedling tray, or until the plants are finished and you've hardened them off and you can start to plant them outdoors. And continue fertilizing at suggested intervals in this early seedling stage. So that was seedling growth. Our next and final part of this series is going to be with Alicia, transplanting, seedling growth after that, and then hardening off to prepare those plants to go outdoors. This is our horticulture website. Lots of information up there, not only on seed starting and vegetables and annuals, but you can learn about composting, turf, trees, shrubs, spring blooming bulbs. There's a lot of information up there. Again, I'm Martha Smith. You have my contact information up there. If you have any questions about anything that we've covered in this session, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thanks.